I'm taking suggestions for topics to focus on during worship this summer. We've been getting some really good ideas. One of them is Jonah. If I were a betting person, I'd bet a nickel, maybe even a dime, that most of us know that Jonah has something to do with a whale or a really big fish. But have you ever wondered, what's it really about? Here's his story in a nutshell. Jonah is a prophet in Israel. God speaks to Jonah and says, I want you to go to Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria, their enemy to the north. People there didn't believe in God, and they didn't treat other people well. Jonah doesn't want anything to do with them, and so he gets in a boat and goes in exactly the opposite direction, to Tarshish. But God doesn't give up on Jonah. God uses a storm. Jonah is thrown out of the boat and swallowed up by a big fish. Inside the fish, Jonah finally decides, maybe I should do what God says. Jonah goes to Nineveh. He tells them to change, and they do. It's a story about how God said go, Jonah said no. God said, oh, and the people said, whoa. Jonah found himself in a position where God's purpose was different than his plan. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever come up with a plan for what you were going to do next? Then God showed up and told you that he had something different in mind for you? When I was in college, I wanted to be a doctor. That was my plan. I got a degree in microbiology, and the next step was to go to med school. That was when I heard God saying, I think you really should be a pastor. God's purpose was different than my plan. My hobby is powerlifting. Last year I had a really good year. I was ranked number 1 in the world at my age and weight. I had planned on having another really good year. Then my shoulders started hurting. Right now it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to compete at that level. I'm not saying that God caused the pain in my shoulder, but I do believe that God has a purpose in it. And I'm also sure that it's not what I had planned. You probably have an idea of what you're going to do today. It might involve getting something to eat, and you probably have some idea of what you're going to do at work or at school. What if God were to show up? And what if God had something else in mind? I'd like to invite you to put yourself in Jonah's shoes. If you'd been there, what would you have done? What would you have been thinking? What would you have been feeling? What would you have learned? If God were to say go, would you? Would you say no? Are you running from God now? God is relentless. God is a God of second chances and third and fourth and fifth. Do you hear God saying, oh? And see if in the end you don't find yourself saying, whoa. This is our Thursday, April 18th edition of a video series we call Stronger Faith. Stay safe and be well. God bless you.